We've Vembered all over the no.
Oh my gosh. This Yeah, y'all won't hear. You might hear. I don't know where the cut's going to be, but technical difficulties yet again rearing their ugly head in the most hilarious way possible.
We've really got to get us some technical difficulties music so that whenever we do have to splice these things together, we just kind of drop that in, and you already know, like, oh, the computers went and died on them. Okay.
Yeah. I'm imagining something like the end of the Holy Grail with the llamas sacking the office and that's the music I'm hearing.
We can make it work. We can find a legally a legally separate but still recognizable version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the back of my head, all I'm seeing is an office full of llamas sacking Ted.
Yes. Yes.
As it should be. Speaking of music that we hear. Man, that was a stretch.
I appreciate you attempting to get it back to whatever we're supposed to be doing from whatever it is.
Really
we are
squirrely,
doing.
Dan. Is that what you appreciate about me?
That is what it appreciates about you.
You both ought to take 10 to 15% off.
Yeah. So how did y'all find November? What is it as awkward and fun for you as it was for me?
Half of that. the awkward part for sure.
Okay.
It was, I think part of it is a function of the fact that there just wasn't as much out. And we see this every year, right? We get into the Christmas season. A lot of the releases, are around the holidays. If there are any releases at all, which there are relatively few of, certainly far, far fewer in December. But, we start to see the slowdown into November. Still some things, still definitely enough meat on the bone to get some good reviews in, but certainly nowhere near as robust, let's say, as past months in the year.
Yeah, I have literally 6 records listed in total.
I only have 7, which is very low for
wow.
both.
I do feel like I got a little bit more, but at the same time, Wham already recharted like 2 weeks ago for me. So we're getting to that point where the charts are going to be next to nothing.
How many songs total are you working with?
Oh, I still got 24, and I'll explain why later on, obviously. I think you can kind of guess if you have listened to our monthly reviews before.
Right on.
Nice. A little throwback. I like it. Let's throw forward here to Jay. Get us kicked off with your number 3 album.
So I toyed quite a bit with what I was going to wind up making my number 3 record for the month. And weirdly enough, landed on something that I don't think I would normally have at the end of my month list. Yeah, I like loud rock. I like really emotive loud rock. I like loud rock that sounds like it's got a twinge of pop music in there. And there was one artist this month that dropped just the coolest blend of all of that. And that's Poppy and their album Negative Spaces. It's slow. It's almost psychedelic in the way it performs. And the guitars are very heavy. It's almost got like a Deftonesian vibe to it, which I absolutely love. And the way her vocals just swing from super crunchy to like pink girl pop, like it swings back and forth from the saccharine to the harsh, and I absolutely love that. There's a couple songs on the record that are, nearly enough to put you into tears. I would say I'm terrible with song titles. I really should have just written it down, but I didn't do that. It's suffice it to say that the album is emotion, and it is crunchy, and it is poppy, and it is catchy as hell and loud, and it's everything that I want in that type of record. It was beautiful.
Very nice. Is this your first experience? And this is not a rhetorical question. I am not at all familiar with Poppy, but I didn't know if this was your first kind of go round or if this was a band that you have been familiar with before.
So if you had asked me before I listened to this record if I knew who Poppy was, I would have said, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So like knowing, and I've listened to some earlier stuff since the album dropped, and I can honestly say that I don't remember having listened to it before. So I dug some earlier stuff. I do like this album better.
Yeah, it's something that jumped out at me as I was looking into as you were talking about it. Just this being from what I can tell, the first album of Poppy's that was produced by Jordan Fish, who was the keyboardist and producer, I think, a few other things for Bring Me the Horizon. And I wondered if
That
maybe
makes
some of
sense.
that sound came through. It sounds like it did, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Like I said, I like some of the other stuff. Her voice is amazing. There's no question about that. Like on all the old stuff as well. Like it's all great. I do think I dug the sound on this record a little more.
Very nice. Yeah, especially in like a Muck and Meyer kind of month like this has been like something that's just a lot of whatever it is, I feel like is clutch.
Yes, absolutely.
Good shit, man.
What clutched you?
So my 3 picks for the month, all 3 of them share one thing in common, and that is that they are somewhat of an acquired taste. Maybe some more than others. Certainly my number 1 far more than the other 2. But certainly all of them in the category of if you love it, you love it, and if you don't love it, maybe not necessarily that you hate it. It's maybe not that kind of, like polar opposite situation, but you would know pretty quickly if you're into these 3 artists or not. And luckily I happen to be very much into these 3 artists. So it was great for me. So my number 3 on the title track of this album, often frequent collaborator Stove God Cooks croons and says, if it ain't Griselda, it don't mean nothing. I don't know that I'm going to go that far with it necessarily. There are plenty of non-Griselda acts that do, in fact, mean something, but I'm at least down with the overall sentiment. As is, I'm going to guess my number 3 artist, West Side Gun. I have been neglecting Griselda releases kind of deliberately over the last several months because I have been also co-signing a lot of Griselda releases in the months previous to that. So I've been trying to balance it out a bit, but I figured especially if there was any month where you have to get some home cooking in, it has been this month. And West Side Gun has certainly bestowed upon us the lovely Still Praying. Technically, this is a mixtape, which usually would disqualify it for me. However, it's also a 14-track disc tape. That's a different episode altogether that that you can scroll down and listen to if you haven't already. But a 14-track mixtape is what I was trying to say. What is unique, at least to me, about this is that there's a lot of West Side Gun in this. You certainly do get some of the collaborators, like I said, Stove God Cooks. You get Benny, of course, Conway, all the ones you would expect. But the vast majority of these tracks are just West Side Gun, and I am A-okay with that. Also, as a fellow pro wrestling fan, West Side Gun, huge pro wrestling fan. Several of these tracks named as somewhere in the pro wrestling zeitgeist. For instance, Justin Roberts, who is a pro wrestling announcer with the AEW promotion. Dr. Britt Baker is another track. She is a professional wrestler. And the album cover is a really cool picture of the late, great Sid Udy, a.k.a. Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, and Psycho Sid. So the intersection of pro wrestling and awesome music really just hits me right in the good place.
Right in the Ted Danson.
Right in the Ted Danson, let me tell you. you're forking right about that, bro.
Well, so I left this off my list largely because it's a mixtape.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm questioning whether or not I should have, because I did really enjoy it, and I did put something in my honorable mentions that is, I mean, I think it's a great hip hop record, but I do think this was better, largely because of the lower level of featured artists on it. I'll get into that when we do our honorable mentions, but this was really good. It's more like to me, it felt kind of like a culmination of his work, right? So like it felt a little bit like there's some throwback sound on there for what he sounded like a few years ago, and there's kind of his progress or his progression as an artist, and I really dug that about it.
Because I feel like artists tend to get kind of distilled down to the to the lowest common denominator, right? And he comes in, he has his catchphrase like the boom boom boom, the whole bit.
Yeah.
Like he's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And I agree. This definitely put him on display more than just like him and the homies. It's like just Gun. Just, it could have been called Gun and it would have been perfect.
Yeah, and like you love the Griselda releases, and I I don't dislike Griselda, but for me, like when one artist on Griselda drops a record, it's all of them. It's
Exactly.
the whole crew. Like just stop, just call it a Griselda record and just put everybody on it. You can release 3 of them a year, and everybody will be happy. But this wasn't that. This was a little bit different. So I feel like I gave it short shrift and didn't by not adding it to my honorable mentions list.
Well, I'm curious to hear what you think when you, if and when you go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious to hear what you think about your number 2.
My number 2. Wow, this was a cool record. Have you ever been like, oh, what's the word I want to look for? I'm looking for my original note. So I wrote something about this, but then I realized that I wrote something a long time ago. Ah, there it is. So I have my list here, and I have artist and then album and then my notes on the album. And the only note that I wrote for this record was "God damn." And that is for the album Omni by The Browning. Now, I love these guys, but this album in particular, they've had one other that's close to it, but this one in particular, this is deathcore, but with like a glitchy break beat happening underneath it. I want you to like picture that sound.
I
Glitchy,
can't.
break-beated deathcore.
I cannot. Those things don't work together, or so I thought.
It sounds like it shouldn't work together. It sounds like I just said like experimental jiggy metal. Like it's not like a thing that should exist, but it's wild and it's loud and it's a punch in the face and it's honestly kind of exhausting. Like this record gave me permanent stank face. Like that thing that happens when like it breaks and you're just like, yeah, that. And it's permanent. Like it's just there the whole time.
Man, that sounds like less of an album and more of just like an experience.
I would love to see these gents live and just experience what happened. Because it's like, have you ever been to like a metalcore or a deathcore show and you see the audience and whatever's going on down on the floor and they hit the breakdown and everybody loses their shit for like 30 seconds at a time?
Yeah.
This is 100% breakdown.
Jesus.
There's no in between here.
It's like you're the marathon runner, like someone is like coming in to like hand you a bottle of water. You're like dousing it on yourself as you keep listening.
Yeah.
Only 4 more tracks
exactly.
to go.
They're like, how are they still going? It's that. And that sort of chode who's been ninja kicking for the last half hour in the middle of the pit with the X's on his hands. He's tired 3 songs in. Like there's no break on this one.
It's something where I think I, will always be in awe and impressed and seeing the virtues, no pun intended, of just like the technical prowess and skill involved in making music. But, especially playing live music, the part that I always forget about is how much fucking energy it takes to be able to stand up, and do a set, especially as a high impact, high energy band like this, to do that night in, night out, week in, week out. Like there's no version of me that would be able to do that. Like mad respect.
No. But yeah, so if you have not listened to this, the intro to the album would give you a great, like, it's called Wake Up, and that's what it does. It wakes you up. I was not expecting it, and I played this record, and the only reaction I had was, God damn.
And unsurprisingly, for great bands of that ilk, signed to Spine Farm Records. Shout out Spine Farm Records.
Yep.
Yeah, a great record by your admission, which means it is a great record. I really don't need any other qualifications besides that. So I'll be jamming.
You really
to
should.
it.
If you found yourself without stank face for a while, just slap on one of these songs and it'll come back.
Well, I don't know if my number 2 necessarily gave me stank face, just because in this case I kind of expected what was coming. in as much as that I don't think anyone expected this album to be coming out. But when you have someone who's really, really good at what they do, the bar is through the roof. The bar is in the event horizon of the sun at that point for that artist to deliver, which is what brings me to this quote from a review for this album. You're going to know immediately where this review came from. Even before I say it, you're going to know because of our longstanding vendetta. But if you didn't know, as soon as I read it, you'll know exactly which publication said this. The quote is, "His glossy, hyper-local sixth album arrives after a year of unimpeachable victories. The question is," I can't say it with a straight face, "the question is, how much do you enjoy watching him take lap after lap?" Dick Jorts, let me tell you, I enjoy it a whole fucking lot. Of course,
Wait,
I'm talking
did they
about...
mean that? Did they mean that as a negative thing?
They did. They gave this album a 6.6.
Oh my God.
6.6, Dick Jorts. That's about, if I can do math, 3.4 too low for the absolute masterpiece that is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Now, again, to deliver after the what, fifth, sixth, seventh round knockout of Drake from April and May of this year, he could have laid low. He could have not released anything else. He could have done featured. He could have just went on tour. He could have played the Super Bowl. And everyone would be like, one of the best to ever do it. One of the greatest in the game of the last, pick a number amount of years. And no one could argue it. But he put himself out there with a surprise release that I don't think was on the docket at all. And basically backed up every single claim that he made. It's peak Kendrick. Again, it's just like with West Side Gun. If you like Kendrick, if you love Kendrick, this is going to be a 12-track buffet, let's call it. If Kendrick's not your thing, this isn't gonna convince you otherwise. This isn't gonna bring you around. Also, how are you not a fan of Kendrick Lamar, especially in like his freaking like blue-haired Super Saiyan 6 2024 era? I mean, pick a track. It's going to be a good one. Dodger Blue was a particular favorite, even though it did have a lot of features. Still a hot track. Also, the leadoff track, Whacked Out Murals, fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Again, no surprise that this is a great album, but just more so a reinforcement that he's untouchable right now. He is the best rapper, the best active rapper alive. I feel like that's a claim that is, to use Dick Jorts' words, unimpeachable.
I can't disagree with any of those things that you said. I also do not have it on my list because for me it didn't slap me across the face like some of his other stuff did. But to give it a D, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I will say this wasn't as impactful as some of the previous Kendrick releases that I've heard, in terms of just, like you said, slapping you across the face, hitting you right in the feels. It wasn't necessarily that.
No, I did. If I had to pinpoint my criticisms of it, it would be things like it got a little samey.
Yeah, I could see that.
After a while. Like, not that any individual track I would turn off, but after a while I'm like, okay, I need to mix it up a little bit. A lot of real down tempo stuff on this record. And again, none of that is a scathing indictment of it. It's just not my favorite Kendrick record. That's a pretty high bar.
Yeah. Yeah, and that says everything that needs to be said. Like, is this the best Kendrick Lamar record? That's such a tough question. I would ultimately say no. It's certainly not my favorite Kendrick Lamar record, but man, did it blow away most of the other shit that came out this year.
I did find myself wondering as I listened to the album, and mostly because of how this year has gone for him, a lot of my questions or a lot of my thought process while the record was going on were, ooh, who's this one about?
Like he's just like spilling the tea on every single track, and we just have to peel back the layers to figure out who.
Yeah, like it was an unanticipated record, right? So he had to have a reason to want to drop it. He had to have something on his mind. So who are we talking about now?
Oh, I'm sure that there are subreddits that are just ablaze with figuring exactly that out.
Yeah,
and I'll be visiting them all after this. But while I pretend not to look at Reddit in the background, Jay, go ahead and hit us with your, I guess we are to the honorable mentions, right?
Yep, we're at the honorable mentions, and as I said, I only have a couple. I'm going to start with New Zealand's power shoegaze act, Phaser Days. It's the album's called Soft Power. It's beautiful record, atmospheric pop, very close to a shoegaze record. I shouldn't say it's shoegaze. It's close, but it's not quite that. Just a beautiful record. Next up, I had another sort of crunchy octane album by a band called Defenses, who I'd never heard of before. The album's called Shadowlight. Really good stuff, sort of in the vein of like a 3 Days Grace, but with a little more energy, more like almost like a Seven Dust style, female fronted, and really powerful, really cool stuff. I'm looking forward to what they do on the next record. This one was good. I'm looking forward to what's next.
Nice.
And then lastly, on my honorable mentions, I have actually a former label mate of Kendrick Lamar, and that's Absol and his record Soul Burger. I really expected more of the reference to Good Burger going on in there, but really only got it on the one track. But it's just a really cool album, and I thought the only missteps it had were there were too many featured artists on it. Like Ty Dolla $ign didn't need to be there. However, Vince Staples shows up, and that's wonderful. So I really enjoyed the album. It was kind of the opening track really hooked me with it. It comes out with like an acapella. I don't even know what to call it. It's some really witty, really cool lyric stuff at the beginning of it. And it's just sort of an acapella sung in the background. No beat, no anything until about halfway through the song. It's just cool. And I really enjoyed it.
Heck yeah. Yeah. The Soul album was at the very top of my probably not going to get a chance to listen to, but we'll listen to later list. Always loved Soul since his TDE era. Never really listened to a lot of his, his own releases, but just that he featured on everything else in the world. And he always just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. And I personally really like his style of rap, which is, I know some people might find it annoying, but I kind of like it. There's a little bit of Hobson in there, a little bit of Kanye style in his flow. But to me, like the only negative thing I can say about the record is the featured artists. I don't like him as much as I like him.
Yeah, it's tough when you're good to get people that are as good to feature on your album. I guess we'll add Ty Dolla $ign to the list of show beefs, is what I'm hearing.
Well,
I'm okay
not as much as some of the other ones.
Well, yeah, there are layers.
I didn't need him. And if you've got a track with Vince Staples on there, why would the next track be Ty Dolla $ign? It's just bad planning.
Oh, that's so cold. That's so underhandedly cold. I love it. Well, I will zoom through these because, like I said, I only have 4 of my own. First one is, I believe, their first release in 16 years, Songs of a Lost World from The Cure. Absolutely beautiful album during the moments that Robert Smith doesn't open his trap. Also, I'm sorry. Apologies to Mr. Smith, but I said what I said.
Those are my sentiments exactly.
It's just so good. And then it's not singing, it's warbling at best.
It's what he does.
It's what he does. He's good at it. Number 2, the self-titled album from State Champs. Just pop punk, full stop. Think something in the neighborhood of like a Bowling for Soup or like a Simple Plan, but maybe better. Something along those lines. Like, like the mid to late 2000s, coming back in vogue. Very, very cool album though. My third honorable mention, the sad end of a lovely era, the 5th and final album, posthumous release from one Juice WRLD. It was The Party Never Ends. It's everything you would want in a Juice WRLD album. It's pretty twinkly beats as the backdrop to Juice's very typical, very awesome delivery. I wonder if there is more music in the vault, quote unquote, more stuff that maybe isn't album ready, but maybe can be in a kind of anthology release at some point, because more Juice WRLD is always good. But if this is truly the end, then it was a good one. It was a hell of a ride. And then 4th, an album that had the unfortunate distinction of being one of the other albums released when GNX came out, and that was Mahash Mashana. I think I said that right.
Father John Misty.
beautiful, wonderful, very Misty-esque album. Screamland, if you want to track in that, Screamland is an especially great one, but the album is very much, if you like them, you like them. It's a good one. Super, super good.
Agreed. That one actually, interestingly enough, I liked that record a lot, and it probably should have been on my honorable mentions list, but I forgot about it.
I mean, that matters. Like we
It
have that
does.
all the time. There are so many albums that we forget about after we listen to them.
Yeah. And honestly, like that says a lot when I only had 6 records on the list and I was looking back through. I glanced over the top of that and didn't add it to the list. I did like it in the moment. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Apparently not enough to remember it, but
Right. When you listen to that many albums, it's bound to happen. And a lot of you listeners, I mean, just I've talked to people on their Spotify Wrapped play or report how many minutes of music that some of y'all listen to. It is absurd. We do a music podcast. I don't listen to anywhere near as much music as some of you do. So kudos to those in the 6 digits, especially. Like, well done. Well done.
I saw somebody today and they were telling me that they hit like 130,000 minutes or something like that. And I was like, I hit 30,000.
Right.
Like I was just shy of 32. All right.
Not 106. That's
that's
one of my friends hit 106, 130 for you.
Yeah, it's insane.
That was like 62,000 I hit.
Oh, very nice.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, okay.
I feel like maybe mine was broken, or maybe I just didn't listen to nearly as much music as I thought, because it was like 9,000, and that seems extremely low. So
Tired.
Yeah,
That's lame.
It's super lame. I don't know. Maybe I'm the problem. It could be. So,
no, it makes sense. It's just weird. Go ahead. Continue with what was your point? I don't remember.
I know I don't have points. You've been on the show with me long enough. I don't do points. What I do, besides saying funny words, is push it to you for your number 1.
Weirdly enough, what I wrote here for my number 1 record digs in a little bit to something you said in your honorable mentions. And that is that pop and emo rap and the like have not been my favorite things of late. Juice WRLD has been dropping singles with randos pretty consistently since he died 5 years ago. And I'm not trying to diss him, but as the de facto example of everything emo, rap, pop, it's hard not to feel like the stuff coming out now was previously unreleased, maybe for a reason. Like he chose his songs to release. These were on the back burner. For better or worse, whatever. I say worse with the Nicki Minaj stuff. Maybe some of the others. I did enjoy the record. I didn't love it. A contemporary of his, however, out of the New Jersey 070 zip codes, is releasing some fantastic oddballs that stretch what pop, emo, and hip hop can do for each other. 070 Shake's most recent drop, Petrichor, is a journey of emotive piano pieces and recorded conversations and ambient sound and oddly placed kick hits and almost childlike emo vocals. The melodies are catchy as hell, which is rare enough for an emo pop rap artist in a post-Juice world. That I said world, and that doesn't work. But there is something about Shake's voice that just sounds raw, regardless of the effect piled up on it, or whether the music is overwhelming, which it never is, or whether the beat is an up or down beat. It's never upbeat. But like, there's certain songs on here that are like, my favorite track on the record is Into Your Garden, which starts with an almost Zelda-like piano intro for the first full minute of it, and then launches into some weird, funky switch beats where it's on the downbeat and then it's on the upbeat in the chorus versus the verse. And it's just cool. Now, I started liking Shake 2 years ago when she showed up on Ray's epic track, Escapism. And this album did not disappoint. Petrichor is everything I wanted from this artist, and then some.
I know how much you were so big on, are present tense, so big on on Ray. So anyone who would be a feature, or a collaborator with Ray, I feel like is automatically going to get a ton of points right off the rip.
Sometimes that works in their against them for me because I expect too much. Like
Oh,
I
can see
feel
that.
like that's true as well. This didn't happen here though. Ray for best new artist.
Oh man, not one that I even took a glance at, to be totally honest. And a miss. And clearly, once again, I'm 3 for 3 on misses with your entire list.
Yeah, that's wild. Consider there was like 5 albums that dropped. How did we do this?
I know. I think this is the first time I did not hear anything on your list.
I see how it happened. You only listened to 9,000 minutes of music.
Here it is. Here it is. Pile it
Slacker.
on. I will be talking to John Spotify after this and making sure that is rectified, aka listening to more music. But you've had a lot of that in your list, just the kind of cross-pollination, I guess, of genres in ways that maybe don't make at least immediate sense, but still sound great because of the application and because of the artist that is involved in it.
Yeah, I do feel like this one's not exactly, it's not like I don't know, some fucked up weird combination of genres. Like the genres here actually are fairly commonly thrown together. I feel like, you brought up Juice WRLD's record, and I do feel like the 070 Shake falls fairly squarely into the same playing field. I just think what he was doing that was more interesting back in 2018, 2019, she's doing interesting things now.
Right. It's hard to stand out. It's
yeah.
It gets harder and harder to stand out with, especially the digital music landscape and the digital media landscape as a whole being what it is. Like, you have to just really be something extremely unique for anyone really to give you the time of day.
Yeah. But not so unique that they go, that's weird, and dismiss you.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll still gravitate towards you if you're too weird for the masses.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. We got you here on the Fairly KickAss podcast.
Honestly, if we're your target audience, you done fucked up.
Apologies to 070 Shake for for the lack of career, thanks to us being, or thanks to Jay being a huge fan. Oh, well, I can maybe one up 070 Shake in the weird category. I feel
sweet.
Pretty confident with that, with my number 1 album. Can I just say that more than anything else on my list, this is the ultimate acquired taste kind of artist. But Phil Elverum is like sushi in that way. If you love Phil Elverum or sushi, then you are just absolutely enamored by it. It is something that you truly adore and savor. But this is the polar opposite one of the three, that if you don't like Phil Elverum and his musical stylings, then you really don't like it. It's not your thing. It's not everyone's thing. I think in earlier versions of me, it would not have been my thing whatsoever. But I have acquired the taste, and thanks to that, when confronted with the noisy, disjointed, chaotic, but also calming and soothing mess, for lack of a better word, it is a mess, that is the album Night Palace, I did really what any Phil Elverum fan would do. And I pulled up a chair, and I loved it, and I savored it. This is Phil Elverum under his Mount Erie moniker, by the way. Wikipedia will tell you that this was written by a man who has been practicing Zen meditation recently, and perhaps some of the tracks that's true. But that doesn't account for the title track, or Swallowed Alive, which is just basically yelling, or the sort of fiddling with the bad FM radio quality of the backing track to Myths Come True, or a number of the other tracks on this absolutely behemoth release. And because I didn't do my research, I cannot remember how many tracks were on this album. I know it was somewhere north of 20. So we're just going to throw out a number
23.
and say 26. 23. I was close.
I think.
20. Oh, shit. I nailed it on the noggin.
You nailed
26.
it? Okay, good.
Good for me. We'll just cut out the whole part where I wasn't sure that was the number. And we'll pretend that I knew it the whole time. That will never happen. But someone who has written and performed songs about despair and loss and extreme sadness with a sort of gravity, but also a sort of, I don't know, a sort of delivery that makes it not seem okay, but makes it seem acceptable. Accepting maybe is the best word for it. And I won't go into the backstory, the history, or anything like that, but just know that you might feel a certain way about a lot of these tracks. You may glean your own thoughts and feelings and emotions from them. I certainly do with really any Mount Erie track, and these were no different. But it's just for someone to be able to evoke that kind of emotion is really, really lovely. So yeah, I love anything that this artist produces, and this was certainly one of my favorite releases that he's put out.
That's kind of saying something too, because that was like released on like the first day of the month.
It was indeed.
I listened to it and I don't remember it.
That's super under for this album specifically. That's kind of the one and done is extremely understandable.
Like that first day, I was really like I listened to that record, the Mount Erie, the Planes Mistaken for Stars that dropped, and the West Side Gun record all on the same day. And the West Side Gun is the one that stuck with me more than the other ones. So
you didn't get around to the Jimmy Fallon from that day?
There was no, I didn't. I definitely did not. Oh, I mean, I did listen to Beardfish and Def Lizard also later in the evening that day, but those aren't really. Never mind. It's okay. Not my thing.
Yeah. Probably better than the Jimmy Fallon, if I had to guess, but it's different strokes for different folks. I can only hope, Dan, that none of the Jimmy Fallon ended up in your purview at all.
No, thankfully. I was with Jay. I had no idea there was an actual record involved with that. So no, thankfully not.
Yeah, looks like there are a number of songs. That's what Google tells me, at least. The album is called Holiday Seasoning. Yeah, it's a full ass holiday album, 16 tracks. Unfortunate.
Good for him,
I guess.
Yeah. So instead, I had a bunch of stuff. Well, we'll get to the spoiler anyway. You know how we'll do the whole thing. We'll start off with an honorable mention, and then we'll eventually and get to some good stuff, and then get to some not so good stuff. Which actually, it's one of those months where, man, I hate to. There's like one bad, some meh, a lot of good. I think it's a pretty good way to sum that up. And it's a pretty way to sum up the chart. So let me start with the honorable mention, and it is a leading single off a new record. It is Lady Gaga and Disease. And I got the same thing that everyone else did when listening to this for the first time. It was a return to Gaga's classic sound, which I know a lot of people have been clamoring for, especially since Joker. But, anyway, you'll pick up pieces of past singles. It's not really a bad thing because they're masterfully assembled into a new piece that actually feels more like a sequel to Bad Romance. But that feels like I'm just tagging a negative on it because there's never a good way to say, oh, this is the follow-up. This is part 2. Well, that's a way to guarantee the song's supposed to suck. This one doesn't.
Nice. Yeah, sequel, quote-unquote sequels, even like spiritual successors are hard.
Yeah.
But Lady Gaga is one who has certainly gone against the grain her whole career. So not a surprise to hear that this is actually a good one.
The next, continue with spoiler alert, and I would need to see if I can jog y'all's memories as well, because we have to go back to next month, I assume, when you guys listen to it, because it was a very late release in October as an album. But the spoiler alert is get ready to hear about Chromacopia a lot. So let's open at number 3 with the collaboration with Tizo Touchdown, Darling I, which blends Tyler's sound with that late 90s, early aughts R&B deep cut feel. This is a track that stands out from a good chunk of the rest of the album, not just in sound, but retrospective in a different way. Doesn't necessarily fall into one of the record's main themes, which is dealing with aging through the lens of lessons learned. Though there is a tinge of regret weaved into his admission of preferring polyamory and how that might impact a possible future family, there's a lot going on. A lot going on here. However, it is definitely a part of the song, summed up with the lines. But when that gray hair finally come, at least I felt something. And if I ain't find the one, nobody could fulfill me like this music shit does. So I'll be lonely with these Grammys when it's all said and done.
Man,
It's a good line.
Right. But also we can just talk about the track musically. In that case, a gem. Like I said, it feels like a blend of turn of the century R&B, and yes, I hate the fact that I can say that, but it is what it is. And then today's top smooth tracks. What seems like a simple beat with piano chords weaving through it builds to so much more, and Tizo Touchdown's vocals are just on point throughout. So I guess the question was, did y'all listen to Tyler, the Creator last month?
Yes.
Okay. And can you remember enough to go into these songs individually?
Individually, no.
Fair enough.
As a record, I can say that it's definitely far more interesting than what a lot of like this sounds. This isn't the right word for it, but a lot of the mainstream hip hop stuff. It's far more interesting. It's odd. He does a lot of really cool stuff with vocal work that other artists aren't doing, and I really enjoyed that about it. I will say that a couple of the tracks come off as super obnoxious on first listen. So I have not gone back to give it. I think I gave it one re-listen, but I haven't gone back since.
I mean, it's one thing that I'll say just on Tyler as a whole that, you know, anyone who's kind of familiar with his early career and some of the cringier, edgelordier stuff that he produced, you know, it was always going to be a blemish, and rightfully it should be. That was, I mean, yes, he was younger, but that still happened. He still was responsible for that. But that to me does not negate the beauty and the amazing stuff that he's put out since he's gotten through that part of his career. And Chromacopia certainly is one of those, you know. Yes, I lost the train of thought, but yes, it's awesome. He's awesome.
Fair. We can keep following that through then, because song number 2 takes us to the slower side of the record and Judge Judy. This time a track, the sound that feels more like a soul classic than 90s R&B. But again, it's that aura blended with Tyler's pristine production that you were just talking about. It's got a bit of a lighter, more ethereal sound compared to the rest of the record, which only sets you up for the gut punch at the end of the track. It highlights Tyler's abilities as a storyteller and as an artist that manipulate your emotions, taking you through a play-by-play of this relationship before hitting you with its conclusions. It is one of those tracks where I would actually like to say a whole lot more, but you kind of have to experience it for yourself and take that ride to truly appreciate what's at work here, which sure sounds like a cop-out, but you really don't have a ton of songs where a viewer can honestly say, oh, I don't want to ruin the ending for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, go check this one out. The rest of this month's list, I mean, all of it, when you go over to fairlykickass.com with the ride along playlist and the cheap plug to boot.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I think that he's not mentioned in, like, he's not given any credit, uncredited, that's the word. But Childish Gambino also does feature very lovely, like, on this track as well.
I didn't realize he was, see, and that tells you more, is that you don't even necessarily realize, obviously, since he's uncredited. Fucking duh.
It's not just me, it's contagious.
You know. But that's number 2. You know how it works. So let's slide down to the bottom and get all the bad stuff out of the way before I give you ultimately the best song of the month. And what can I say about what would fall in the dishonorable mention slot? Kesha's back, and she's also back to making music for one thing and one thing only: feeling yourself, and eventually fucking. But Joyride, it's really not bad. It's a throwback to her first couple of records, yes, while still kind of working in the headspace of the experimentation from the Gag Order record. But it's actually a fun track. It's a song for the summer that oddly waited until November to push its way into the top 40, and probably really doesn't belong here. But, you know, numbers are numbers, and stuff like this should make me reconsider my system, but out of sheer bloody mindedness, no. But go ahead and check out Joyride when it's time for funsies of whatever kind.
What else you got there going down?
Going down to number 22, our trip to the bottom of an otherwise pretty decent month, all things considered, and mostly for one artist, does get us to another case where a song probably wouldn't have gotten mentioned in a month with more charters, but it's a song that kind of bored me, honestly, and I had to go back in my playlist after it finished to remind me that I did in fact listen to it, because the Marias sang that no one noticed, and I sure didn't either. It apparently does fit into our favorite category of happier sounding songs that are actually devastating, but I had to look that information up afterwards because the lead single off of Submarines makes you feel like its namesake, underwater and feeling slightly floaty, and for me, not in the most enjoyable way.
Yeah, they just put you on a tee with that title. Holy moly.
They really did. And the problem is, like, I could have written so much worse about it, but I'm like, I didn't hate this. I kind of nothing the song because the song doesn't really feel like much until you really, like I said, if you're just listening to the playlist, it passes you completely by. It's just, okay, it's another kind of really light indie pop song. Okay.
Yeah, it's there. It happened.
It happened, but barely any of us noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Apparently
notice.
So did y'all. No one noticed.
Nope. No idea.
Moving on. Okay, so look, I gotta be real to let me talk to you right here, podcaster to podcaster. I do need to make a promise to myself and to stick to it, and to you as well, dear listener. And in order to get through this one, I must not make fun of the artist for his name alone, for that is hack and that is cringe. And we do serious musical critiques here. God damn it!
It's true. It's true.
Within reason.
It's our credo.
Not really. But with that in mind, our number 23 spot is bestowed upon Tucker Wetmore for his entrance, Wind Up Missing You. I have to turn away from the camera now to finish this one. And I think this one will be quite short because A, I'm not making fun of a rather silly name, and B, there's just not much here. This is another entry into the apparently growing category of generic boyfriend country. He does at least work the traditional country instrumentation in, and the song doesn't sound that bad. But it is generic country pop, formulaically built to be sold to suburban housewives and single 30-somethings. You know what? I will just stop there with that because it's probably going to get needlessly mean from there. So focus on the song. It's meh. There's probably been at least one of these types of songs in the charts every month this year. And if I was even more of a masochist, I would go back and build a playlist and make myself rank this crap for the year. But at that point, I think I'd rather take a banjo to the back of the head. Sidebar to this as well, Morgan Wallen also had a rather generic song hit the charts. Two of them, actually. But the worst of the two, while just a generic, actually has a little bit more of a country edge, which puts it a couple of hectares ahead of Wind Up Missing You.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, if you're wondering the caliber of songwriting we're talking about, let me just tell you the first couple lyrics of this one. I know I might look like another ball cap on a bar stool underneath a PBR light. Yeah, that's all you need. That's all I needed to know that I will never, ever listen to this song in my entire life.
That right there might be the perfect description of the song, actually.
Another ball cap on the bar stool of the Billboard Hot 100.
Reeking of PBR.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'll be so unlucky.
I was looking at the other songs on that EP that had that track on it, and the other ones are Mr. Miss Her and Silverado Blue, You Honey, Wine into Whiskey. Yep. There we are.
Yep. Chat GPT could have done better.
Are we sure it didn't do that? Like, are we positive that this wasn't an AI create? He looks like an AI creation. Look up a picture of him.
Hey, Gemini, build me a boyfriend country artist.
And give him the silliest name you can possibly think of.
And give it the silliest name you could possibly think of.
No, make the mustache bigger.
Oh shit! I actually shit my mouth. Hang on.
We might have some show research to do on this topic in the future. Bless your heart, Tucker Wetmore.
Tucker Wetmore may in fact be an AI project gone awry.
He's either that or he showed up to Brad Paisley's last garage sale and just went ape.
I'll take this and the boots. Oh, definitely the boots.
Definitely the boots.
Oh, how do we get out of Tucker Wetmore?
Do we need to? I feel like we could keep going.
There's meat on the bone for sure.
No, there's.
That's too good a lyric for him. Meat on the bone.
Yeah.
That's not.
Nope.
Okay, let's bring it back around.
I swear. Finally, I swear, the nadir. The bottom of the barrel, the actual bottom of the barrel. And after hearing this several times, I cannot figure out if this is a bad song or just lazier than anything I've heard in the last few months. Because it's David Guetta and Alphaville and Ava Max and whatever they did to Forever Young. Well, Alphaville didn't do anything to their song, actually, but they get a feature credit because it is their song that got the old Guetta hack and slash, which is seemingly the only way he can still be relevant in the U.S. pop market these days.
Taking songs from 1982?
I was going to say charting because of a thing, again, a bad remake that got made into a ton of TikToks after he played it at Ibiza.
Sure.
Forever Young is a reworking of the 80s classic with new verses. And if that sounds familiar, you should just forget the fact that Jay-Z and Mr. Hudson already did a much better job of reworking the track with new verses. But why would you want that trash from the Blueprint 3 when you could have a reworking with new verses that are pretty much the same as his reworking of Blue with Baby Rexha, or the same as his reworking of What Is Love with Anne Marie, or his reworking of the Logical song with Kim Petras? And are you starting to see a pattern forming here? Also, side note, good Lord, did this man crank out the singles. They're all the same tracks, sure, but he damn sure cracks them out. And they damn sure suck. Like this one. It's a dance track remake of a pop song that 2/3 of the people who usually hear Guetta's work have no idea that it's a song as old as their parents or grandparents, depending on your situation. No judgment. But no, I guess if you want to party like we're never going to leave our 20s song settings to exactly the EDM beats you'd expect when you hear that David Guetta has a song out, then this is a song. Though that is a smaller and smaller demo here stateside, if this one's performance is any indication. Instead of falling down the chart, fucker buried.
Now, I was going to have a rebuttal and say that, yes, most of David Guetta's shit is trash, except for that hot track they did with T.I. that one time, before realizing that I was mistaking David Guetta for David Banner. David Guetta, not the producer on Rubber Band Man. My apologies to David Banner for ever putting him into the same category in the first place.
Man, you better watch out. That's the kind of thing you get punched for.
Yeah.
Deservedly so.
Although, like, here's the go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say you could be forgiven for mistaking David Guetta with, like, Marshmello or Calvin Harris or any of the others that do the same thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a little bit of a jump to get from David Guetta to David Banner.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to this track, and it's unfortunate because I do like Ava Max. So
that's the problem. I do too. But she also doesn't really sound like herself on this one. So you'd be okay with giving it a skip and going, yeah, no, it's not really her.
Fair enough. It's Ava Max through the David Guetta filter.
Yes. Actually, yes.
Oh, God.
You never go full David Guetta.
So I guess I can get back to talking about the best of the month, which I blatantly foreshadowed a little bit ago. So saving us and getting into that. The best charting song of November is Tyler, the Creator, the single off of Chromacopia, Noid. And it was a hell of an introduction into where Tyler was coming from with this record, examining the mental toll that being in the public eye takes on an artist. If Rockwell, somebody's watching me scratch the surface of celebrity paranoia, Noid is the full iceberg, like the whole ass thing. You feel Tyler's manicness in the flow and his delivery. The song always feels like it's just seconds from going over the edge or going off the rails. And it's the feeling you figure Tyler, that's got to be what he was going for in putting this together. And then you add in the horns that make things feel disjointed to a certain extent, and the guitars that accentuate the verses while also feeling right there on the edge of madness. The whole song is a study in dancing on the edge of complete chaos. It's not easy to get what's going on necessarily and feel like the song just isn't good. But then you give yourself a second chance at it and drill down into it. And the whole point is to feel that closeness to the cliffside. It is manic and it is very loosely structured and unsettling and jazzy and Black Sabbathy. And it makes no sense and it makes all the sense. And you should probably talk to someone if it clicks a little too close for you. And I love it. And the record is phenomenal. And our not friends at Dick Shorts actually gave it a 7.6, which is still 2 points too low in my humble opinion.
At least a point and a half.
At least a point and a half.
I will also give a nod to Io Edebiri from The Bear and
Yes.
by now a million billion other things, starring in the music video and really selling and embodying the freneticness, the chaos, being shown up at alternating points, either holding her cell phone or holding a pistol, with a look on her face saying that she would use either one to your disadvantage. It is exquisite.
Yeah, work of art all the way around. 10 out of 10. No notes.
Right on.
Well, have we had our fill of November?
I've definitely had my fill of November.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking as much as I'm looking forward to the 6 metal albums that are going to come out in December. I'm actually looking forward to the little bit of a break while we narrow down what our end of year stuff is going to look like.
True. We can't exactly tease that yet because we haven't figured it out ourselves. But at some point, we will get together and we will decide on how we're going to celebrate the passing of another trip around the sun musically. And I suppose if anyone has any ideas, I'm all ears.
No, I mean, I know in past years, and for those non-Spotify listeners, you have not heard some of our end-year stuff. But we usually do, right? Seriously. Just get out while you still can. But we typically do a year in review where we go over some of our favorite and least favorite things of the entire year. We'll certainly do that to some extent this year. There are probably a couple of other things, maybe one or two other either holiday themed or, December winter themed things that you'll hear. Maybe an episode from the vault that might come across your ear. So yeah, stay tuned. There's definitely some meat on that bone, to coin a phrase from a few minutes ago.
And these two have no idea that I had this idea. So just keep everyone in the dark though. But this month for bonus content, keep an eye on fairlykickass.com if you have a little interest into what the chart looks like on Christmas morning every year. That's all I'm going to say.
Ooh,
I like that. I'm looking forward to it.
Jay, are you also looking forward to checking out our social media accounts by any chance?
I am. What are those social media accounts? I heard tell that we had some TikTok going on.
We did. We had the wintergreen and the orange that we're going to be posting here.
Those are my favorites.
Soon. They are pretty good. We're working on some TikTok content. It's same place as it's always been at Fairly Kickass on TikTok. But yeah, super excited to finally have some TikTok content, some stuff that is extra, like Dan said, bonus content in that accent.
I'm glad you got
it. It was a choice.
Someone got that.
That was good. It was. We're cultured on this show. As always, the other places we post fairly often, at Fairly Kickass on Twitter, at Fairly Kickass on Instagram, and at Fairly Kickass on Threads. We are potentially looking to expand to other social media avenues, so stay tuned for that. If we do end up taking the plunge anywhere else, you will be the first ones to know. Dan already mentioned fairlykickass.com for all of your ride-along playlist content and whatever that mad scientist is cooking up. I'm stoked to see more of it. fairlykickass@gmail.com for any email correspondence. And of course, get this podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Some examples are Spotify. We're on there. Apple Music, we're on there. And believe it or not, we are also on YouTube. And going hand in hand with the TikToks, we are going to start cross-posting those to YouTube Shorts as well. So if you prefer the YouTube Shorts format over the TikTok format, I know I do personally, then that will get you to us.
It's the same format.
Yeah,
it's
but
literally
TikTok's
the same
just
thing
rude about it. TikTok is just overbearing. I mean, in as much as we're posting to it and we'll possibly have some traffic, so I guess we have to like it.
I mean, no, but don't shit on it. I guess, I don't know.
We finally found the line on this show. We will take anyone to task except for TikTok.
That's not true.
That's not true.
I literally just bitched about it in one of my reviews because that's how one of these songs got on the list.
Yep.
You know what? Fuck them all. But please follow them all too.
Follow and fuck them all. Except for David Guetta. Don't fuck him.
But he's famous.